The café was filled with the aroma of roasted beans and the low hum of morning chatter, but for Liam, it was just another place to hide his exhaustion. A single father to a 5-year-old daughter, Liam's life was a relentless cycle of school runs, spreadsheets, and the quiet loneliness of a home that felt too big. He sat in the corner, nursing a lukewarm latte, when he saw her, Sarah, his high-performing, always composed coworker, crying at a small table by the window. What he did next, and the single sentence he whispered to her, would not only save her career but would unearth a secret that changed the trajectory of both their lives forever. If you've ever felt like the weight of the world was on your shoulders and no one was noticing, this story is for you. Before we dive into the heart of this encounter, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Chronicle Hub. We tell the stories that remind us we are never truly alone. Liam was the kind of man who moved through the world like a shadow. At 34, his hair was already thinning at the temples, a physical manifestation of the stress of raising his daughter, Maya, alone after his wife had walked out 3 years prior. He worked as a junior analyst at a prestigious firm, a job he kept only because the insurance was good and the hours were predictable. He wasn't the star employee, he was the guy who arrived exactly at 8:59 a.m. and left exactly at 5:01 p.m. His co-workers often whispered that he lacked ambition, but Liam knew better. Ambition was a luxury for people who didn't have to worry about the cost of sneakers or the price of emergency dental work. On the other side of the office spectrum was Sarah. Sarah was the youngest senior associate in the firm's history. She was sharp, dressed in impeccably tailored suits, and possessed a vocabulary that could dismantle a bad proposal in seconds. To Liam, she was a machine. To the rest of the office, she was the person they all feared and envied. They had worked in the same department for 2 years, yet they had never exchanged more than a "good morning" or a "did you see the memo?" Sarah represented everything Liam felt he had lost: direction, drive, and a sense of belonging in the professional world. But that Tuesday morning, the mask had slipped. Liam had gone to the café 3 blocks away from the office to avoid a particularly loud group of interns. He found a seat in the back, hoping for 10 minutes of silence before the morning meeting. That's when he saw her. Sarah was tucked into a booth, her head bowed so low her forehead nearly touched the table. Her shoulders were shaking, not with the rhythmic breathing of someone who was frustrated, but with the violent, silent tremors of someone who had completely broken down. Liam's first instinct was to turn away. He was a man who lived by boundaries. He didn't have the emotional bandwidth for his own problems, let alone those of a woman who had never shown him a shred of warmth. But as he watched her, he didn't see a senior associate. He saw the same look he had seen in his own mirror at 3 a.m. when Maya wouldn't stop crying and the bills were piled high on the kitchen counter. It was the look of a person who had run out of strong. He stood up, his knees popping, and walked over. He didn't ask if she was okay. That was a hollow question. Instead, he pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down. Sarah didn't look up immediately. She tried to wipe her eyes with a damp napkin, her breath hitching in her throat. When she finally looked up and realized it was Liam, the unambitious guy from the cubicle down the hall, her face hardened for a split second, the instinct to defend herself still flickering. But then, it went out. She looked at him with raw, red-rimmed eyes and whispered, "I can't do it anymore, Liam. I'm failing at everything." Liam didn't offer a platitude. He didn't tell her it would be fine. Instead, he leaned in and said the one sentence that would change everything: "The bravest thing you ever did was showing up today with a broken heart, because I've been doing the same for 3 years." The weight of those words hung in the air between them, thicker than the steam from the coffee. Sarah froze. For years, she had viewed Liam as a man who didn't care about his career. Now, in one sentence, she realized he wasn't lazy, he was a survivor. And for the first time in her life, someone had validated that she, too, was surviving something unseen. They sat there for an hour, ignoring the pings of their phones and the start of the morning meeting. Sarah confessed that her perfect life was a facade. Her mother was in the late stages of a degenerative illness, and Sarah was spending her nights in hospitals and her days trying to maintain a 100% success rate at a firm that didn't care if she lived or died. She was terrified that if she showed one crack, she would lose the salary she needed to pay for her mother's care. Liam, in turn, spoke about the crushing weight of being a single father. He spoke about the night Maya asked why her mother didn't want them, and how he had sat in the hallway and cried because he didn't have the answer. They realized they were both living dual lives, performing for a world that demanded perfection while drowning in the reality of their human struggles. They made a pact that morning. They would protect each other. In the office, Sarah began to delegate tasks to Liam that showcased his actual intelligence, moving him out of the shadows. Liam, in turn, became Sarah's eyes and ears, covering for her when she needed to take her mother to appointments or when the grief became too much to bear in a glass-walled office. The office gossip shifted. People wondered why the shark and the ghost were suddenly inseparable. They assumed it was a romance. It wasn't. It was something much rarer, a platonic partnership built on the wreckage of their shared trauma. However, the story doesn't end with a promotion or a simple happy ending. 6 months into their arrangement, the firm announced a massive restructuring. Only one of them could stay. The shark and the ghost were now pitted against each other for a single director role. The partners expected a bloodbath. They expected Sarah to devour Liam. During the final interview, the partners sat in a row, looking at Liam. They asked him why he should be chosen over Sarah, who had higher billable hours and a longer track record of success. Liam looked at the men in their expensive suits and thought about the morning at the café. He thought about the sentence he had said to Sarah. He stood up and placed his resignation on the table. "I'm not the right person for this role," Liam said calmly. "Because Sarah is already doing the job of 3 people while carrying the world on her shoulders. But before I go, there's something you need to know about this firm's records." This was the major reveal. Liam, the unambitious analyst, had used his quiet time over the last 3 years to track something no one else had noticed. He presented a file that proved the firm had been systematically underpaying female associates for a decade, including Sarah. He hadn't stayed at the job because he was lazy, he had stayed because he had been building a legal case to ensure that when he finally left, he could take the firm down, or force them to change. The twist? Liam wasn't just a struggling single dad. Before his life had fallen apart, he had been a high-level forensic accountant. He had taken the low-level job at this specific firm because they were the ones who had represented his ex-wife's family in a lopsided custody battle. He had been a sleeper agent, waiting for the right moment to exert leverage. But meeting Sarah had changed his revenge into rescue. He used the leverage of the underpayment records to negotiate a massive settlement for Sarah and a severance package for himself that would allow him to stay home with Maya for a year. He didn't want the director role. He wanted his time back. And he wanted Sarah to have the respect she had earned. As they walked out of the building for the last time together, the sun was setting over the city. Sarah looked at Liam, her eyes clear and full of life for the first time. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "You could have had the job. You could have had the power." Liam smiled, picking up his daughter, who was waiting with his sister across the street. "Because," he said, "I realized that the one sentence I told you that day was also for me. I was showing up with a broken heart, too. But hearts don't heal by winning, they heal by helping someone else carry the load." The two of them went their separate ways, Sarah eventually opening her own firm that prioritized mental health and parental leave, and Liam becoming a consultant who worked only when he wanted to. They remained the closest of friends, a constant reminder that sometimes, the person sitting across from you in a crowded cafe is the only one who truly sees you. This story teaches us that we never know the battles people are fighting behind their professional masks. Kindness isn't just a gesture, it's a lifeline. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who might be struggling today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Chronicle Hub for more stories of human resilience and the power of connection. Remember, your one sentence might be the thing that saves someone today.